This video is about the Nephilim, and I'm going to speak about how did the hybridization begin. In one way, you can look at art from Assyria, Iraq, Mesopotamia, and different regions that are considered the birth of civilization. And if you look at that art, you're going to notice some interesting things about the way winged beings were shown to be the famous ones, the kings of old, also known as the gods. So look into some of that art. Here in New England, we have a museum called the Hood Museum, and I have been viewing these stone reliefs from Iraq for a very long time, and I've always had the belief and the experience that what we call angels are actually reptilians. And the reptilians are the invaders to this time capsule that was a womb environment that caused the fall of what was called the vapor canopy. And in the womb environment, we human beings were a very different species. Since then, hybridization through food and also livestock has changed us, and it was purposeful to make us live shorter lives and have illnesses that kept us kind of unwell and not vibrant as we used to be. It also caused us to have meat bodies, and the meat bodies then produce cortisol, which is adrenochrome. So what I want to talk about and show you some pictures so you can think about this with me. I have been posting photos the best I can on my YouTube kind of like posts, but there are certain photos that I have not been allowed to share no matter what. I tried several different times. So this is one of them. I tried again and again to share this. The winged beings with beaks, also known as the bird tribes or the watchers. They reproduced and shapeshifted, because they were more ethereal than physical, into winged beings. And if you notice what is in their hands, he's holding flowers. And this being is holding a pouch. And then up in this corner, he is actually fertilizing a big flowering tree. And that is where the genetic changes happened. Now, what they needed was a food source. They were mining gold. What was the gold? Us. We were the gold. So if you think about our womb environment within this Gaia matrix as it was, we were an incredible food source, because here we were, these golden beings inside of a time capsule, basically a matrix, or some people think of it as a ship, having been severed from our Andromedan home and moving, and we were captured, okay, by these beings. Now, these beings tell us a story that creation began with this tree of life and Adam and Eve. But we saw in the last video that that tree of life was sine and cosine. Sine and cosine, time and space, captured a perfect cube, which then perfect cube is what Noah's Ark is in the Hebrew. So I've been reading some of the books that were not included, like the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Enoch. And surely from the Aramaic, from Hebrew, this ark thing is a cube. Very interesting. So let's look at some of the hybridization that they did to create the Nephilim, which was a warrior race. So they crossbred with different species to create a powerful race. And some people can just say, oh, that's just art, Lalita, what are you talking about? But there is an enormous amount of art and mythology and artifacts that in fact show us that there was a different species here, and that was Homo capensis. It had a very different skull shape. It had a much larger brain, very intelligent. So what they did was they created another type of being that was a warrior class. They were giants, the Nephilim. And these giant skeletons have been found all over. The indigenous people knew who they were, and they were carnivores that basically ate us. Their gods were Mulak, the reptile king or the lizard king. And the lizard king Mulak, so let's just go back. That lizard king Mulak looked like this thing, okay? Winged dragons. The winged dragons called themselves angels. They said that they were from the celestial regions, which means that they were not from here. And they said that they were in charge of watching over humanity, which actually means that they raped the women and created hybrids to serve them. I believe that they're still in charge. I believe that that is kind of who the blue bloods are. Homo capensis had a copper-based blood, so they actually have blue blood. And their species lives a very long time. And I've been reading many books for years and years before I made this video about the dragon beings who were winged reptiles who needed to feed their king, Mulak, the lizard king. And so go back and research Canaan, okay? The Canaanites all did child sacrifice to this Mulak being. So they invaded. What do they look like, or how do they present themselves? They present themselves as shape-shifting, humanoid angels with wings, but what they actually look like, please do not get this confused. What they actually look like is a being with wings, and they can retract their wings because their wings are made of a different substance than kind of our meat suit. They're a very different species than we are. So that was basically interdimensional rape of our little womb environment, which then, if you look at the mythology from that time, the stories changed. As an astrologer, I know the ancient stories from the Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and many other books that I reference about the stories used to be about the matriarchy, and then suddenly they changed to the patriarchy and stories of gods and war and looting and rape. And basically we were used as fodder for all of that, because the more adrenochrome that can be produced, the stronger these beings become. So I also want to share something about Enoch. Adra, Enoch, Rome. Adra is the father or the king of the universe. Enoch, okay, is allegedly one of these beings who had special information from God. But remember, you must remember, God is Yaldabaoth. We're in a simulation, and the thing that is called God here, Yahweh, Jehovah, the whole of it, is himself a demonic being. We are not in a realm of goodness. We are in a realm in which we, as the gold that the Anunnaki were mining, are used here, and we're forced to recycle ourselves again and again and again and come back and recycle ourselves and come back, because the Adra Enoch Rome was a blue blood himself. Enoch was the son of Cain, and therefore he was a blue blood, the Homo capensis line of the Canaanites. They are not part of humankind. They are, in fact, our invaders. And I believe that Noah's Ark was a perfect cube. That is, some people have asked me about this black cube. Well, there's another person who I've called out many times who has done all the mathematics for that Ark technology, and he's selling it for you to wear. And what is that Ark technology? Allegedly, it's supposed to give you more power, more strength, more vitality, and it all has mathematics behind it. So he's telling you, I mean, that guy is telling you, and I do believe that he's a Nephilim, that the Ark technology, what an ark is a mathematical equation. And if you look at the darn thing he's selling, I think that's what we're inside of. We're inside of some kind of mathematical geometry that creates an arc. All of this, yes, is holographic. As I said, it's not flat and it's not a sphere. It's a holographic projection from these geometries, which I've shared before. The books that I've asked you to read are Philip Pullman's books, his Dark Materials, because that gives you your first idea of what these so-called angels are. They are monsters. And remember, their God is like in a hyperbaric chamber, wishing to die, wishing to get out of here. And Metatron, key among them, was the grand geometrist that causes that flower of life that makes you reincarnate again and again and again, which is why that symbol is stamped all over Cairo, Egypt, which are bizarre, archonic things that create the simulation here. And so angels are geometrists. The other being that I have called out many times is what I call Dr. Supernatural. And Dr. Supernatural is doing a huge course in Metatron right now and saying, please come and visualize and meditate upon and do this stuff so that your life is enhanced. Your life is being controlled by those Metatronic symbols. And so maybe you're cutting a deal. Maybe there is a temporary reinforcement for you of the simulation. But ultimately, be very careful about those guys. Dr. Supernatural and Harriman both, I really think, are Homo capensis. And I've had clients tell me that they've had dreams of them, and they come as voracious, reptilian, lustful monsters in dream time because they're shapeshifters. Okay, so here they can look like a regular human, but why are they so damn smart? Why do they have magical powers like Dr. Supernatural? In fact, one client told me that she was at a seminar where one of these reptilian hybrid estivated. So he called it some kind of miracle, like he did not eat or drink for a very long time. That's a reptilian trait. That's called estivation. So they slow down their heart rate. They slow down their body temperature. They don't have to open their eyes because they have a special lid that they actually can sleep walk, where they have that lid closed, but you can't tell because it's kind of a see-through opaque eyelid. And they can go on for quite some time not eating or drinking because it's a different blood type. It's a blue blood, copper-based Homo capensis blood type. And there are a lot of videos on this. You know, this has been my own experience and my own research on it. And I happened upon that book in the last video, The Beautiful Lie or the Ugly Truth, by Danielle Trusani. So I was like, wow, well, she's writing for the World Economic Forum, telling us about the hybridization with the Yeti, and that those groups born with the white hair and the very pale blue eyes and the super pale skin are part of those, also a Nephilim monster hybrid group. And yet, if you read it, she's like totally using neuro-linguistic programming. And I told you, I thought it was coded in some way. She's like, I don't know if she's being used as an MK Ultra or she just carries these codes within her because she might have some of this blood also. But so much sympathy for these weird monsters that live in the mountains. And I don't know if they were originally here and they were allegedly Neanderthals. I don't think we evolved from them. I think those are a monster race that were created also, that are part of the elite groups, just like the reptilian groups. Hairy, scary things with claws. So as an astrologer, I have heard thousands of reports of people who were children and being molested or forced to have sexual intercourse with these hairy, scary, monstrous things with claws. And either these thousands of people who have told me this are all psychiatric and should be in the sanatorium, or there are thousands of people that I've spoken with who were molested or raped by these things continually from the time they were 3 years old until the time that they were 13 years old. There seems to be this period, if you listen to the Russian roulette of reincarnation with Kisena, she also talks about these kind of non-physical, ethereal things that came and raped her at night. And so it doesn't matter who I talk to, whether it's a 23-year-old young man or it's a 64-year-old woman. I hear the same things, that there is some kind of species that uses us for sex. And it's scary sex. It's like paralysis, like you can't move and then you're afraid and you know something is harvesting your energy. One young man told me that it happens regularly to him, and he loses his seed in the middle of the night. And in mythology, that was always attributed to Lilith, that some demon hag being came and caused men to ejaculate. I don't believe that's true at all. I have the experience that these things can come as star Merkabahs into your room, or they can come in an ethereal form, but you can feel like the claws and the hairiness, like a Yeti. One person who had not seen that video and had never read the Ancestors book insisted that it was a Yeti, and these Yeti things are not nice at all. And people have reported, when they're reporting on Sasquatch and these mountain monster things, that they can appear and then they can disappear. That's because they have that quality of, it's all holographic, folks, and they know how to be in their physical form and they know how to be in their ethereal form. You could actually do that too. If you weren't so traumatized, this is all holographic, and we could all be physical. And then, as you know from near-death experiences, you don't need your body to be your consciousness. You are your consciousness. And that's how astral travels and out-of-body experiences happen. So, yeah, either all of my clients are lying about being raped by some creature at night, or there's some accuracy, because they're not talking to each other. These people don't talk to each other. They come to me because my videos allow them to say something they've never said to anyone else. And of course, now when I get this video, I'm going to get a lot of emails. Again, please do not email your personal story. I've already heard all the personal stories. Where your personal story needs to be is in the comments so that other people can read it. Please only email if you are trying to get a session with me. So I do want you to consider reading some of Danielle Trosani's book. I thought Angelology explained very clearly. And again, who is she writing for? It doesn't tell in this what her resources are, but she has all the resources, the same that I've ever had. And somehow she seems to know about the deep secrets of these things. So on page 194, it says, soon the Nephilim receded to castles and manor houses. They built fortifications of granite, mountaintop retreats, sanctuaries of luxury and power. Although subservient, God's children were graced with divine protection. Their minds were sharp, their souls were blessed, their wills were strong. As the two races lived side by side, the Nephilim receded behind their wealth and fortifications. Human beings were left to suffer under the strains of poverty, illness, and became slaves to invisible, powerful masters. I think that pretty much says it all. If these beings have come to you, this is a really scary book. So I want you to know that when you read it, it is coded also, and it opens other dimensions so that you can see these beings. If you're not used to seeing these beings, it can be kind of terrifying. But for me, since I was a small child, I already saw all these beings. So for me, it's like finally confirmation. So I'm just looking, I marked a couple of these. So let's just start with, he strained to see the scene more clearly. The beings were a hybrid bird and beast, part human, part monster in equal measure. Wings were mounted upon their backs, lush and red. They were shrouded in a light so intense it covered them in a gauze of illumination. Although Gabriella had explained the Geboren to him in great detail, he had recognized them as the same beings he'd seen on the train the night before. So the Geboren and many other classifications of these angels are here. And I shared some pictures. Very hard to get these pictures to share, but there are many classifications of these things, many layers of these things that we would call angels in art. But look at the bottom with all the humans with the skulls in the crypt, and all these layers of alleged angels above. So I've done my research on this. You can just find this stuff on Wikipedia, but there's different levels of them. One of the weird ones with just the eyeballs is called the Seraphim. This book, weirdly, she knows all the different levels of the monsters and what they were called. But just look at the art with the freaking skulls down below of the humans who are all sad and crying while these alleged divine servants of God, whatever God is, I personally think the thing that is called God here is some kind of weird demonic computer. But also look at this person who's called Hermes. Look at that thing. That is a bird reptile, isn't it? It's a bird reptile. Why do we think that these things don't exist? They do exist. They're hidden away. And they're the elite structure behind all of this. We're their food, we're their livestock. And what these books, actually, there's a second book too called Angelopolis. They breed, they interbreed. Sometimes they're doing experiments, and those children are yanked and used to figure out if the experiment worked, because they need to keep the atmosphere and the environment of this simulation suitable to them so they don't get sick. But we're allowed to get sick all the time. And in fact, when we start to get stronger, they will create a genetic change in our food to make us weaker. So this all ties into everything I've been studying my whole existence in this incarnation here. And I just want you to consider that these things that are called angels are actually demons. And it says that straight up in this book. And in this book, she's also covering for the Rockefellers. If you read it really carefully, this John D. Rockefeller and Abigail Rockefeller, they're pretending to protect the lyre, L-Y-R-E, this magical celestial instrument. And in the end, pay close attention how Abigail paid off a whole bunch of people to protect the lyre, and then Gabriella gets killed, and some of the other human angelologists. It's basically a setup, and they're all killed because they think the Rockefellers are on their side, but in fact, Abigail played around pretending she was protecting this instrument, and then made sure that the angelologists were all killed. So I've actually talked to clients who are blue bloods also and have that Nephilim in them, and they come from the elite families. They want money, they want power, they want sex, and they get really bored with humans. They often want to marry in their own group of blue bloods. So I don't know how they get their astrology exactly, although I did hear an interesting video by an MK Ultra named Arizona Wilder that Alex sent me. And I listened to about half of it because she's obviously so disturbed in MK Ultra. And she's talking about her purpose, and we've got to have a purpose. By the end of the video, it's getting really sad. But you know what our purpose is? To feed these things. Okay, we're the gold the Anu are mining. We are the gold. And our purpose is to get out of here. So our purpose is to realize that that's what this place is, and our purpose is to exit. That is our purpose. But the interesting thing about Arizona Wilder's video, and I've only watched one, I don't spend a lot of time looking at videos because I know they have that light strobe technology in them. But she said that the way that you get your astrology is to make sure that your parents are your predators and that you are a victim, and conversely, that you cause your own parents pain. You cause your parents pain and suffering also. So that she said the astrology is very carefully chosen to make sure that you associate love with pain. And that is all over in this book. One of the things that these winged beings, the way they mate is they mate with pain. They hurt each other because they're reptiles. So if you've ever seen reptilians mate, they bite, they kill each other, they fight. There's a mating ritual sometimes of them circling each other and hurting each other. And then that is the sex violence thing. So we humans, that's what they do when they come to you astrally. They scare you while raping you. That's what I've heard from all of my clients. And I'm just going to be like, these people aren't talking to each other. They're only talking to me. They've never told anyone else. So it's not like it's out there as common knowledge. I happen to just hear thousands of reports that is what has been happening since they were children, some of them into young adulthood. Some people, I actually had an older woman from Ireland tell me that she picked up some kind of an entity from a cave, and that entity is now with her, and it's hairy, and it has claws, and it rapes her. We're talking about an older woman, okay? And, it did say, and I read this to you, that they created those stone fortifications. I also believe that the Anu, which are here, the Anunnaki are called the Abenaki. The Abenaki created all these stone structures around here. And Uriel's machine was based on aligning all of these stone structures to this local galaxy's simulation of the galactic central sun. So, they basically planted us in space. The simulation is planted. It doesn't move. We're planted with these stone alignments to the galactic central sun. We have a lot of them here in Vermont. So I've had a very different feeling about what these stone structures are. A lot of people tell me that they pick up entities inside of them, and I do believe that that is true. In these weird caves and dolmens and cairns and stone structures that look like root cellars, but they're perfectly aligned to the galactic central sun. I think the Nephilim, or the giants that were created from the crossing of these reptilian beings, winged reptilian beings, with humans, were a warrior labor class that built all of these structures to hold the simulation right here in this galaxy, aligned, not moving. We're not moving, folks. So yeah, I want to get back to that love and pain. If you've watched enough of my videos, you know that I have always used myself as an example of the asteroid Richard conjunct my Saturn in the 8th house, and that it was in my chart that was my father's death. And by transiting planets, yes, it happened at a certain time. It was part of the script of the horror Monty Python show. But I want to expand on that a little bit because I don't think people quite understand how bad the astrology is, and that it has to be love and pain because that's how these things breed, okay? So you have this, whenever a child is born, they will have in their chart their own parent's death, all of them, whether they're 4 years old, whether they're 34 years old, or whether they're 64 years old, because I can see the death of the parent in the child's chart. So I have one example of this where a young man, his mother was my client, and she got her 3 sons sessions with me. And the youngest man, who was very close and still living with his mom, was going to have Pluto pass over his moon. And I said, well, a very big consciousness shift around your relationship to your mother is going to come. Moon being the mother, Pluto being the god of death. And he didn't know what it meant. He kind of intuited that it was going to be some profound change, but I immediately felt with my body that it was going to be her death. Now, she was not that old. She was a younger woman, and she wanted to leave because her partner had left his body. She wanted to leave. So, in fact, she got an aggressive cancer. She did nothing about it, even though she was actually a medical professional, and she died. I could see it in her son's chart. Do you understand? We kill our own parents. That's how the astrology is set up. And in my chart, that's when I went to the person who caused the car accident my father died in. And I told her, it was not your fault. I'm an astrologer, and it was in my chart. It was in my chart with his name and everything. Like, you did not cause his death. And that was a huge relief for her. So love and pain is what goes on here. That's what this simulation is. We are these golden beings of love. We are the gold that the Anunnaki is mining. Recently, a friend of mine passed. He took his own life. I had not spoken to him in some years, but he was a friend whose child, when his child was born, he really wanted me to do the chart, and I refused to do it. And it was because it was the year of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, and I could see that that would be the death of the father, because Saturn is the father. So if you look at the charts from 2020 and then look at the level of people letting go of their bodies right now, every 45 seconds, somebody takes their own life because it's so painful here. It's so painful. But what's interesting is I will be able to see that in the child's chart. If you have a child, it wasn't even in his chart. It was in his child's chart, which is why I refuse to even look at an infant's chart. I will not do newborn babies. Please do not ask me, because I'll be able to see it. Actually, when my own child was born, I was really concerned because her moon was in the 8th house. And I was like, wow, her moon is in the 8th house. I'm probably going to leave her early. And her Pluto is conjunct my sun. So we had a heck of an experience together. But because I know that, I never get into blame or shame or shoulding on her. I just know it's going to be rough. It's rough for us. And what's interesting is many of my clients who are regular clients, who I do their chart, I do their children's chart, I do their mother's chart, I can always see it. I can see that your child actually has your death in their chart. So there's a very strange thing here that happens where, like Arizona Wilder said, and she spoke a lot about the reptilians also, but she said she was forced out of body experiences by putting her in ice, which would cause her to lose consciousness and then die and then astral travel. So she met all the different realms out of body, and she saw that the astrology was given to cause love and pain, and that your parents will always be your predator. You'll be their victim, but you will also be their predator because it will be in your chart. So when I am advising people to whether they should have children or not, it's always a no. And I've said this in the kindest way that I ever could, was children are a prescription for unhappiness. I love my children. I love them. And I know, because of who I am and as an astrologer, I can't fix it. And that's what Demetra said to me too. Demetra, my teacher, said, you're not going to be able to fix it. What you can do, though, is hold it consciously so that you're not in the entangled argument over the love and the pain. Because if you can read your own astrology, remember, all my videos are free on Vimeo under Galactic Astrology. Just go to Galactic Astrology, go back 3 or 4 years, and you'll see all my astrology videos. You don't need to pay me. In fact, you are your best astrologer, because I don't know all the personal names in your life. But if you look up the personal names, you'll see everybody's already there. It's all already there. I did someone yesterday. Her kids' names are there. Her ex-husband's name is there. In fact, it's so specific in the asteroids under additional objects at astro.com. Remember, it's only significant if it's conjunct a planet or a point. But at astro.com, there's actually like first name and last name. And yesterday when I was working this out with one of my clients, she's done 3 sessions with me, and it gets deeper and deeper because there's transiting asteroids and that person suddenly comes into your life. But it's all in the script. You're being played. You're inside of a Monty Python show. You're being harvested for your love, your golden power, and your sexuality. That's what this place is. there was the asteroid Epstein. So I came upon the asteroid list. I'm going through going, oh my gosh, there's an asteroid Epstein, because they're discovering these every week, right? Every month I get a new list of asteroids from Mark Pottinger. That's the program I use. So you're always going to have more asteroids and more asteroids. So I'm going to tell you, all of these little kids that were on the Epstein Island, I am absolutely sure they will all have Epstein in their chart. That's how specific it is. So the Russian roulette is you could reincarnate anytime and get Epstein as an asteroid in your chart, and then you would be used as one of those kids. So a lot of people, most people who book sessions with me say, I'm booking a session with you because you're able to put it all together, Lalita. You're one of the only people who can put it all together. I put it all together because I read the books and I do the research from the writers who are clearly working for the World Economic Forum. And I know she's trying to make a cover up for the Rockefellers. So if you read it, she references the Rockefellers, but in the end, they end up being the murderers. So I do the research, but I have thousands of client interviews. That's how I put it all together. And every single one of those clients is telling me a piece, including women in their 60s who picked up an entity in a cave when they were traveling. They told me exactly what it looked like. They tell me exactly what it feels like, and they can communicate with it and tell it to behave and get over there and stop approaching me right now. I mean, these are real visceral experiences that my clients have. So those monsters that were created, those pictures of monsters that I showed you, they don't leave either, folks. They're stuck here too. Those monster things are also stuck here. And what do they have to do? They have to feed in the astral. They have claws. They have hair. They might be non-physical. They're in another dimensional realm. But I'm not going to negate my clients. This one woman who came to me who picked up this thing recently in a cave said that she'd been to every shaman and psychotherapist and group counseling and personal counseling and trying to figure out if she was crazy. And I was like, I was the only one. I was like, you know, you're not crazy. I've heard this thousands of times. Okay. Yeah, there's entities here. So my advice to you is to realize what this realm is. And by realizing it, you don't have to entangle further. And if you're suffering, know that, you know, that is what this place is. Study it though. Please take your time to study it, because every day, every week, I come upon something else and I'm like, whoa, there's some information right there. We need to know what these things are, because these angels often meet you upon death, and they're shapeshifters, so they can appear as anything. We know that. They've been called the machine elves. They're not elves. They're holographic, but they are entities and they are demonic. So let's see. What else did people talk to me about? I learned this from my clients, and yeah, I'm trying to find out, have I covered everything? Do you? Oh yeah, this is the last thing. So some people have said, why do we need astrology if the sun is fake and the moon is fake? It's not fake, okay? It's holographic, but everything's holographic. So yes, I've looked at the stars under I think it's a 250x magnification. They're liquid plasma, but they're archons, they're beings, okay? And are they holographic? Yes, just like you're holographic. If we are living in a simulation, you need astrology because it's your map. It's either going to play you or you're going to play it. I'm not trying to do your session for you. All the videos are free. If you can do it, read your own chart. If not, I've been doing this for years, so I can do it very quickly for you. In 90 minutes, you're going to be like, wow, how do you know that? How do you know that? And I'm like, it's your map. Like, I had a young man this week. He's like, did you look at my Facebook profile? I'm like, I have any time to look at your Facebook. I had someone from France, then I had someone from Brazil, then I had someone from Vermont. I'm not looking at people. He's like, did you look me up? He has Mars and Scorpio, so he's a private detective. He thinks I'm looking. And he's like, no, I guess you didn't, because none of this have I ever told anyone. I surely wouldn't put it on my Facebook profile. Yeah, so I'll know your deepest secrets. I'll know how you feel about things. I'll know who your parents are. I'll know what's coming up for you. I'll know your relationship with your partner. I'll be able to see it all. And I encourage you to be able to study at that level too. I do have some students right now who are studying with me weekly, and it's almost like it's painful, because then they're like, oh my gosh, that's in there. That's so accurate. That's in there. Because when you really study, and I studied my own chart with Demetra George for 2 years, you're going to be amazed. You do your mother's chart, you do your grandmother's chart, you do your children's chart. It's all there. You never met anybody. They were already planned. Claude Richter is in my chart. In the 4th house, he's who I live with. So yeah, if we're not in a simulation, you don't need astrology. There you go, people. If we're not in a simulation, you don't need your astrology, because then you have free will. If we're in a simulation, you better study the map, which is in the astrology, of where the archons are located and how they're magnetically pulling your life force from you. Okay? We're connected to them. They're magnetic plasma beings. That's what those things are. And they draw on your life force. You are the gold that the Anunnaki's mining. Okay, so my video on the Nephilim.